Hi folks, it's time to break out the bingo balls of fate and the decision dice of destiny to help me choose my reading for November 2025. So without further ado, let's get stuck in. So let us see from which shelf we will choose our first book. Shelf 9. All right then, this is shelf 9. So it's Asher through Asimov, and then shelf 9 spans across the divide here. A bit of Baxter and some Greg Bear, John Barnes, and finishing on Benford, and I think just about Bester. So that's what we've got in store for us. So let's see what takes my fancy. I recently got rid of, sold in fact, the vast majority of the Neil Asher books that I had in my library, and I've left these 4 and I think one other because I've read them before and I quite enjoyed them years ago. But having read Cowl and really disliked it, then I decided that Neil Asher might not be for me. But I might want to read Gridlinked again. It's quite a long time since I read it. I suppose I did read Foundation, or reread it for about the umpteenth time a year or two back, but I didn't carry on, so I could read Foundation and Empire again. The Naked Sun, actually, that would be probably my preference. I read Caves of Steel last year and really enjoyed it. End of Eternity I haven't yet read, so how many is that? As 4. Okay, let's just see what's on the other shelf. What about The Transmigration of Souls? That's on the 101 best novels list. Okay, what about The Sunborn by Gregory Benford, which is the sequel to The Martian Race, which I read earlier this year, maybe end of last year, and quite enjoyed. All right, let's see what the Dice of Destiny have in store for shelf 9. Number 4. So it is not Gridlinked or Foundation and Empire or The Naked Sun, which is a bit of a shame. And it isn't The Transmigration of Souls or The Sunborn, but it is The End of Eternity by Isaac Asimov, of course, and it's a book that I've been meaning to read for ages, so that's good. Okay, book number 1. Shelf 31. Here be shelf 31, and it's a bit of Silverberg, late period Silverberg, so Madripoor. Madripoor Chronicles would be the logical next place. It's a short story collection set in the Madripoor world. At Wind's End is one that I've been wanting to read for a while. We've got a bit of William Gibson here. Now, I read Pattern Recognition recently and really enjoyed it, and I think Spook Country is the second of the Blue Ant trilogy. The Peripheral I haven't read. I did watch the TV show. So is that 4? What about these two guys? Jeff Ryman's Heir and Kathleen Ann Goonan's In Wartime. So that would be 6, or In War Times rather. So that would be my 6. Let's see what the Dice of Destiny have to say for shelf 31. Number 6. So it is not either of the Silverbergs, nor indeed is it either of the Gibsons. It's not Jeff Ryman's Heir, but it is Kathleen Ann Goonan's In War Times. Shelf 42. Now, shelf 42 is behind all of these hardbacks, so I'm going to have to move these guys first so we can see what's going on. Shelf 42 lurking behind those hardbacks. Now, I could go for a reread of the Book of the New Sun. I've got the first 2 books. And I did rather precipitously get rid of the second 2 books, which were in the Science Fiction Masterworks. So I don't have those anymore, but still. So what else have we got here? So Fifth Head of Cerberus we could go with. I did read some of the Island of Dr. Death and Other Stories, so that could be, I could have another crack at that. I think I'm going to leave New Sun and Long Sun because I don't have the complete set of those yet. Seeds of Time we could go with. That's a short story collection if I remember rightly. And what about Webb? I haven't read that one actually. It was published after he was death. Chelsea Quinn Yarborough. And then I'm going to go with a Timothy Zahn. Is that 6? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, good 6. Let's see what the dice have to say for shelf 42. Number 5. So it's not Gene Wolfe or John Wyndham or Timothy Zahn, but it is Chelsea Quinn Yarborough, Cautionary Tales, which I'm guessing, collection of short stories from the author of, amongst other things, Fool's Dawn. So let us see. I think that's from quite early in their career. We'll see. All right. Shelf 10. So shelf 10. Now then, I probably will skip Lois McMaster Bujold. I could go with Borders of Infinity because that's a short story collection, I think. But I've only read Shards of Honor, and I want to read at least until The Warrior's Apprentice before I take on anything else. Now, if I had the first John Carter book, Princess of Mars, I'd absolutely read that, but I don't. So that's the end of that. So I could go with Xenocide because that's the follow-on to Speaker for the Dead, which I very much enjoyed. I could go with Ender's Shadow. I could go with Exiles at the Well of Souls. I think that's the second book. Yeah, I read the first one quite a long time ago. So that's 3. I've read Down Below Station. Oh no, it's 40,000 in Gehenna, so we could do that. So that's 4. I could go with the whole of the Tripods trilogy as one book because they're quite slender. So that's 5. I want one more from this shelf. What about a bit of Michael Coney? I don't believe I've read any Michael Coney, so we could go with Friends Come in Boxes, which I think had an alternate title in the UK. But okay, Friends Come in Boxes, in the door yellow spine there. All right, so let's see what the Dice of Destiny have to say for shelf 10. Number 2. Okay, so it's not Xenocide or Well of Souls or Tripods or Gehenna or Friends Come in Boxes, but it is Ender's Shadow, which I think is a sort of retelling of Ender's Game, but from his friend's point of view. I forget his name. Bean, that's it. Anyway, all right, well, I guess it's quite chunky, but I don't suppose it's a terribly difficult read, and I've heard good things, so okay, we'll go with that. Shelf 38. So shelf 38 is this little cubby hole, and it spans across the corner into this one. And there is an embarrassment of riches. I could almost throw a dart at these shelves and find a good book. So let's see. The other good thing is that most of them I haven't actually read. So let's see. Aristoi I would really like to read. So that's 1. I might come back to this corner in a minute. We'll see how we get on. Across the Sea of Suns, which is the sequel to In the Ocean of Night. So it's the second of the Galactic Centre books, is it? I think by Gregory Benford. And it effectively forms a diptych with In the Ocean of Night because it follows the same characters as the first book, and then it jumps forward thousands of years, I think, into the third book and beyond. So okay, so we're going to go with Aristoi and Across the Sea of Suns from these shelves for now. What we got over here? So we've got the Brian Stableford Immortality series, of which I've got 5. I'm missing 1. There's a Nina Allen short story collection hiding there. I'm sure that would be good. I'm actually not sure. I need to check which is the first of these. Yeah, I think so. I could go with Wolf Flow by KWG, so it's more of a horror book than science fiction. And then Inherit the Earth, I think, is the first, chronologically at least, of the Immortality series. I think that's right. And then what else have we got here? So that's 4 so far. 5 if we include Stardust. Okay, I don't fancy the Colin Green and fantasy books, to be honest, right now. Another time, perhaps. So let's see what else there is over here. I've read China Mountain Zhang. I thought it was fabulous. So we could go with Dead Girls, I think, with Richard Calder. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6 with Nina in the corner over here. All right, let's see what the Dice of Destiny have to say for shelf 38. Number 1. So it is not Aristoi or Across the Sea of Suns or Wolf Flow or Inherit the Earth or Nina Allen's short story collection Stardust, but it is Richard Calder, Dead Girls. Shelf 36. Now then, 36. Another embarrassment of riches. I could go with Blood Music. Very much would like to read that. Eon I could reread. I've read Forgery of God in the last year or 2, so that's good. So that's 2 from that shelf. And I'm very happy to say that the rest of shelf 36 over here is all Ian MacDonald. So it's simply a question of which one I'd like to read. Could go with, let's move those guys. I don't fancy any of those. So I could go with Speaking in Tongues, would be the first one. And then Carinya is the sort of sequel to Chagan. I read that earlier this year, I think, so that could be 2. Plains Runner, so that's 5. And then I could give myself the excuse of a reread of Luna, so that would be number 6. All right, so that would be, any of those I'd be extremely happy to read. So let's see what the Dice of Destiny have to say for shelf 36. Number 4. So it isn't, unfortunately, regrettably, Blood Music, but it does give me the excuse to show you the wonderful cover. Look at that. Love it. It's not Eon, which actually also has a really nice cover. It's not Speaking in Tongues or Luna or Plains Runner, but it is Carinya. Very good. Shelf 47. Now then, this is shelf 47, and there are some doozies in here. Just orienting myself. So there's a couple of Peter Watts things here I'd quite like to read. Freeze Frame Revolution. Anti-Ice I'd like to read, so that's 2. And then is it Ring that's the next one after Time Like Infinity? I think it is. Actually, it's not. Flux is the next one. Okay, so that's 3. There's probably enough Baxter. Oh, the Ganymede Club, that I'd like to read. It's meant to be very good. Charles Sheffield, that's 4. Then we could go with The Difference Engine by Gibson and Sterling, which is Cyberpunk does steampunk, really. So, and then I'm going to treat myself to the potential to reread the Greg Mandel trilogy. I think the first one is Mindstar Rising. Yeah, that's definitely the first one. So that'd be awesome. So let's just check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Fabulous. Let us see what the dice have to say for shelf 47. Number 2. Let's start from the other end. So it's not Greg Mandel, unfortunately. It's not The Difference Engine or the Ganymede Club or Flux or the Freeze Frame Revolution, but it is Anti-Ice. Awesome. Shelf 43. Shelf 43 is all of these lads. I read the 2 Beckett's. I've read that. I haven't read Aries Express. Let me see. All right, I'd like to read Bee Speaker. I would like to read The Dervish House. That's 2. I could go with Anvil of Stars, which is the sequel to The Forge of Gods. That's 3. I think I'd want to read Desolation Road again before I read Aries Express. That's a later sequel to Ujima Flip, Desolation Road. So I'm not going to choose that one this time. And I've read these 2. What about Brazil? So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. And then Saturation Point. That's 5. Am I going to struggle to find 6 books here? I'll tell you what we'll do. I'm going to pick Aries Express, but if that comes up, then I'm going to do a switcheroo and go with Desolation Road instead and give that a reread. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, let's see what the dice have to say for shelf 43. Number 4. Right, pretty excited by this. It's not Aries Express and therefore not Desolation Road. It's not the Dervish House or Brazil or Anvil of Stars or Saturation Point, but it is Bee Speaker, which is the sequel to Bearhead and Dogs of War. And Bees was one of my favourite characters, so I'm looking forward to that too. Awesome. That's a relatively new one. I think that came out earlier this year. We'll take a closer look at the resulting books in a moment, but it's been my habit to pick 2 additional books, that I just fancy reading, so I don't leave it entirely to chance. And the 2 that I've chosen this month are 400 Billion Stars by Paul McAuley, which is his first novel. And the reason I've chosen this is that I recently read a short story collection from early in his career, King of the Hill, which had several stories which were set in the same universe as this book, An Eternal Light. I've tried to read Eternal Light in the past, and I put it down in the end because it seemed to refer to characters and events which happen in this book. It's a sequel to this book. So I decided I would need to read this one first. I think, strictly speaking, you don't need to, but I just felt that I was missing out by not having read it first. So that was quite a while ago, actually, so I'm just getting around to it now. So 400 Billion Stars by Paul McAuley, his debut novel from 1988, if I remember rightly. My other reader's pick is The Prestige by, of course, Christopher Priest, which is a book I've been meaning to read for ages. I've seen the movie several times, but I've never read the book. So I'm intrigued to know how closely this follows the plot of the movie, or the other way around, really, or to the extent to which it's different. Anyway, I've heard it's very, very good, so I'm intrigued and very excited to read it. In approximately size order, slightly randomly, I've got Ender's Shadow by, of course, Orson Scott Card, which is a sort of it's not really a sequel to there's the main sequence of the Ender's Game universe, so Ender's Game, Speaker for the Dead, Xenocide, and the others, and then there's almost like a parallel series, the Ender's Shadow, the Shadow trilogy, which ended up being 4 books, I think. So this is the first of those, and it's I think basically the same story as Ender's Game, but told from the perspective of his friend Bean. So much more than that I don't know, but I do hear good things about it. And then we've got Chelsea Quinn Yarborough's Cautionary Tale, which is a short story collection from quite early in her career, I think. Yeah, this was published in the UK in 1980, and at that point I think she only had 2 novels to her name, False Dawn and Time of the Fourth Horseman. So these stories are from, it looks like, the early 1970s, throughout the 1970s. So that'd be cool. Certainly, I really liked her writing in False Dawn, so I'm hoping that some of that flows through into the short stories as well. Then we got Asimov's End of Eternity, which is a story that I've talked about in a couple of different videos, but I've never actually read. So it's time travel, kind of, having waffled on about it a couple of times. I'm now intrigued to read it. And then we've got Dead Girls by Richard Calder, which is on the Broderick and DeFilippo 101 Best Novels list. I'm gradually working my way through. And this one is a tale of a sort of corporate attack gone wrong, where a French fashion house is fed up with the counterfeit work coming out of China, and it sends some kind of virus over there, but it rebounds on them. It was sent to the east to infect the fake Cartier dolls being made there, and the dolls in turn would infect their male playmates and make them impotent. Revenge was swift. A new virus hit the west. Infected men did not become impotent, quite the opposite, but worse still, any daughter born to them, no matter how cute, turned into a doll at puberty. Not a cute doll, deadly. So it's a sort of almost more like a horror tale, really, or horror-inflected science fiction tale from the sound of it. Then we've got Carina, which is a sequel to Chugga, a book which was, I think, published in the US as Evolutionary Shore. I don't know if Carina was published under a variant title. I don't think so. So this was written a few years after. I think Chugga. Look, this one's signed. To Neil, somebody called Neil or Noel. It's actually difficult to tell. It's a bit of a scrawl. But anyway, cheers, Ian MacDonald. And so this was from, I think it's 1998. Yeah, 98. And Chugga was 95, so it's just a few years between them. So Chugga I enjoyed very much, so I'm hoping that I'll enjoy that too. Next is Anti-Ice by Stephen Baxter, which is a book I've been meaning to read for a while. And this is like an alternate history in which it's sort of Wellesian or Vernian in character, I think. And so we're in the Victorian era, but we've discovered something called enhanced conductance, a property of the British discovery, of course it is, anti-ice, which takes us into space, into the moon itself. It's a world where great bridges span the English Channel, glittering monorails carry passengers speedily across the globe, and a Titanic landliner, the Prince Albert, who prepares for her maiden voyage. The powerful conclusion has us gasping with surprise and fearful anticipation, etc., etc., etc. So this is like a sort of, I don't know if it's steampunk exactly, but it's a tale of significant technological advancement in the Victorian era and in the implications for that, which seem to be a bit dire, judging by the picture on the front. Then we've got Kathleen Ann Goonan in War Times, which is also on the Broderick and DeFilippo 100 Best Novels list, but I don't know a great deal about it, actually. I don't want to read you the blurb in its entirety, but this is about an enlisted soldier whose brother's killed in Pearl Harbor, and then Sam, the protagonist, promises he'll do anything he can to stop the war, and he begins to show that he has a knack for science and engineering, so he's plucked by his superiors from the daily grunt work to study subjects such as code breaking, electronics and physics, blah, 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 blah. Seduced by a mysterious female physicist teaching one of his courses and given her plans for a device that will end the war, perhaps even end the human predilection for war forever. So I don't know if that's to do with the Manhattan Project or something else entirely, but still, in War Times. And then finally, for November, it's possibly a slightly ambitious pile, given that some of these books are fairly chunky, is Bee Speaker by Adrian Tchaikovsky. But if Dogs of War and Bearhead are anything to go by, those were not challenging reads, although this is probably a bit thicker than either of those. Based on bees, I imagine, who's one of the characters in the Dogs of War book to start with, and also appeared on Mars with Bear. I forgot what the bear was called now. She wasn't called Bear. Which played a somewhat peripheral role in Bearhead, but gets a starring role in this book, from what I gather. So that's everything that I have planned to read during November. It's quite a bunch. We'll see how far through that pile I get. But for now, thank you for watching, as always, and until next time, goodbye for now.